Well, now, finally we're here. We're gonna talk about my EG 4-door. Locally an ESi, but it's also essentially an EG8 because it has a SOC engine. We will talk about the engine setup and all the things like the engine details, the pistons, the camshaft. Of course, we test fitted the ITB and it's actually ready, but we're taking our time for the proper steps in development. And your favorite compression test, it's got a webcam by Bisimoto and reference the dyno sheet before, and also the pistons. We will talk about the complete specs of the pistons. And exhaust, so the racer you knew would actually want this. Well, now, after you guys saw or watched the EG hatchback, my first car, this became my second one, and I got this a few years ago. And of course, I had every chance to continue the legacy that Bong did, and it was unfinished, which is the engine that we did before, and I got the chance to buy back the cam. And so this time the setup is pretty much the same with a lot of improvements. Therefore, we can see if it's gonna be a lot better or slightly better or way more. So hey, let's see. We'll talk about that later. For now, let's inspect my car for a moment. We'll go around it. We're gonna check even the interior or the insides before, of course, before we talk about the engine and that intake. Now here it is. We can see the interior. I think the interior is actually a legit EG8 because the rear seats has a center console with cup holders and the locals don't have that. So I guess it's an EG8. And the gauges, the RPM digit is up to 9,000. So I'm not sure if that's also an EG8 or whatever because it's automatic. And comment down below if you guys know it, and we will show you a little later on the driver's position so that you can see the actual gauges. Here we are. It's a real car, with carpet and all, and it's all power, so it's actually an ESi. Okay, now we hop inside. And this is the gauge that I was talking about earlier. Look, but it's automatic, but it's up to 9,000. Most of the sock gauges I've seen here is up to 8,000 or 8 or 8.2 or even 8.5. And this, because this was the automatic before, we converted it and had to get an OEM SIR shift knob because it just feels good. Then here, the last look on the gauges. Of course, the Louisi steering wheel is genuine. And here it is up front. And you can see we actually ran a hood spacer. That's for, we'll discuss it sometime later because I just need it for the future ideas. And like I said, it's in the wild, right? This is where we live. Lots of trees. And of course, the engine bay. Now, this is the wild. Well, no, just kidding. You can see the headers is a old Tri-Y sequential that is stainless, so it's kind of like brown now because I've been using it for years. And we can look closer to the intake manifold. Let me show you something. You see, it's sequential like a Hytech header. All right, let's go closer. You notice on the Skunk 2 Pro Series manifold, there's welds. We cut open the plenum actually twice. We tried it before and it worked, and I figured, okay, you can improve it some more. There's more room to grow. So hey, until I started punching holes through it, so I had to weld it. Now we look at the stock injectors because I had to sell my RDX injectors. So I'm trying to get the newer set so that when we're done with it, or when we start tuning this in the dyno, the injectors are all ready. And you can see we got a fuel regulator that's adjustable. Oh yeah, and here's a closer look of the cam gear. We're using a one twin cam gears because it's been reliable to us. So hey, we'll talk about the engine now. Okay, now I'm sure you guys noticed the intake. This one, I haven't even smoothed it with Bondo because it was just in my car. I'm just using it for research and development. Unlike this one here, we already smoothed it out. But we'll talk about that later. And we'll have the link in the description so you don't have to click away right now. We're gonna talk about the engine setup, and here it is. It's a D16a6, of course, ESi head that's ported. Camshaft is a Bisimoto level 2.x and a Bisimoto high RPM springs. The block is a D16A6 or ESi block, stock bore, and PMO or PH12 pistons. I used to say PM7, but hey, gotta tell you guys the truth. It has ARP rod bolts on the stock rods. And the PMO, I have the specs of it. The dome CC is 5cc. So if you guys wish for me to do a engine build series of my engine, we can actually pull this out, and show you guys all the details from the inside, because this way when we start to dyno it, you guys know exactly what's done on the engine. So let me know down below in the comments. Okay, so the intake manifold is Skunk 2 ported intake with a 70 throttle. And if you noticed earlier, the throttle has a throttle plate or a spacer because we were actually trying to increase plenum volume, because part of what I'm planning is to increase the top end. And because I've ported the Skunk 2 a little too much and we kept punching holes, we figured a 1-inch spacer will be good enough to add a little bit of volume. And of course, the header is an exhaust stainless Tri Y 421, but it's sequentially paired like Hytech, not SMSP. And of course, 13.2 is to 1 compression on pump gas. Yeah. And here's the PMO or PH12 pistons. These two pictures of the block is I just found it online to show you guys. However, these next few pictures are the pictures I have from dseries.org. It's actually 5cc dome in compression, the dome. But we can calculate this, or if we do the engine series, because on the VTEC head it's extremely high. And of course, we gotta represent this the Bisimoto old and new stickers. And this is how the head looks when we first ported it. And of course, when the engine was finished 2 years ago on the engine stand, here it is. And of course, the intake manifold. You can see up close the bunch of welds because we kept punching through, because we're trying to increase taper tremendously. And here it is, how long the runners are. And if we get to do a build series on this engine again with actual video, we will calculate the runner lengths with you guys, and of course a little extra like this. Cause you know us, we always put a little extra on the videos just for you guys. We did test fit the CBR 954RR fabricated ITV of mine, which is around between 9 to 10 inches runner length. So if you factor in the port length, it's going to be really good. And of course, if we do the engine build, we're going to calculate all the possible intake with you guys. And the plan is actually after we get to rebuild or reassemble the engine, we're going to run it with the stock PO8 intake manifold and eventually dyno it like that, and then install a ported PO8 intake manifold, tune, and then dyno. This way we can compare it really good. And of course, lastly, the ported Skunk 2 intake manifold. Definitely, we're going to run the same throttle on all three, including this throttle spacer. This way, it's quite good to see the difference. And I'm sure maybe other places or others have done this, but the problem is when they do the dyno test, they're trying to sell one thing or the other. But in this case, these are all mine. So we're just simply testing it out for you guys and showing you the results. So wouldn't you guys want that? That might be fun, right? Oh yeah, and of course we're gonna dyno test this intake pipe versus a cold air or a ram air, and also see which one works better on certain RPMs. And see, we haven't even talked about the exhaust stuff that we plan, including the headers. And of course, with the compression, we eventually could go E85. But of course, we're gonna try to max it out with Petron Blaze because of this. Remember, decade ago, Bong did this with the same cam and setup. So we gotta see if we can go better. Now let me show you something really wicked. This is a new channel with the guys up in North New Jersey or somewhere there, and they are doing something really amazing and actually creative. It's a father and son tandem, but mostly the dad is doing the cool work. They're building a dirt rally Civic, and look at this. Aside from the all-wheel drive work, look! They clipped or installed the CRV front end to a Civic. This is crazy. And it actually looks pretty cool. And when I showed my colleague, he was so fond of it. He was like saying, people here would probably say, this CRV is so low and so fast. And as soon as you pass it, it's like, wait, that's a Civic. So do check these guys out for the cool stuff. Now on to the compression test, and on this engine, because it's my own, I didn't even have it honed, so because I was trying to save up, because hey, it's my engine. Now here we have my colleague doing the compression test while I crank it up, so let's check. Okay, let's go. Right. Oops. Always check the neutral or the shift knob if it's in neutral. Okay. Alright. 250. Okay. Number 2 now. Let's go. Okay. Around 249 or 248. Alright. Number 3.
Okay.
Alright, around still 250. But it's more like 249 in my book. Okay, number 4.
Sige.
Oh, pretty good. Okay, one last time. We check number 1 again. Let's go back.
Sige.
Ah, it's pretty good. It's actually 251. So hey, that's pretty decent. Alright. I've seen builds that's actually honed pretty well with aftermarket pistons and new rings, but would pull 240 or 230 on the first 3, and then number 4 would be just 180. Like, what the hell? That's actually an inferior build when you think about it. When we do this rebuild or reassemble, I might just have the block honed because, this time you guys are there. So, hey, I gotta impress you guys. So, when we get to redo or reassemble this engine and make it into a series, we're actually gonna calculate with you guys the compression ratio of the PMO or PH12 pistons if you ran a PO8 head. This way, it gives us more ideas on what happens when people try to do that and then just, crack a ringland or, a bore sleeve. So I know this would be helpful for you guys, and also for those in the US or Europe with the D15B7, this just might be the perfect pistons for you guys. And hey, you know what? It's available locally and you'll be surprised. It's just like the cost of a regular PM7 pistons in eBay. So let me know in the comment below if, this doing the reassembly is pretty good, because when you think about it, I gotta weigh in the options because this is gonna be at my expense.